Broadcasting through our flagship station, KNYE in Pahrump, Nevada, and worldwide on the internet, this is Midnight in the Desert. I'm your host, Dave Schrader. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you may be in this great, big, wonderful world. Thank you. But kicking off the show this evening, Danny Draven joins us as we open the horror vault of terror. Danny is a Irish-American filmmaker. He's an award-winning writer, director, and producer of primarily genre films and TV. And after receiving his film degree from Emerson College, he moved to Hollywood and worked his way up through the ranks until he began producing and directing sci-fi and horror films for independent genre studio Full Moon Pictures, Puppet Master, Trancers, where he cut his teeth before starting his own production company, Lucan Pictures. He's here with us tonight for the first hour. Danny, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
They're going to revive brains, Danny. What good could come from this?
Hopefully you can revive some producer friends of mine's brains, because that would be awesome. I can think of a few actors, too. So I'm hoping that technology works, and when you do, let's talk a little bit more about that.
We'll definitely have to connect. How come there's no good Easter horror movies? We've got Christmas horror movies, Valentine's horror movies. We've got Happy Birthday to Me. We've got Happy Death Day. But when's the last Easter horror movie to come out, Danny?
Actually, I think Troma made one. I think it was called like Bunny Massacre or something like that. I think Troma's pretty much done one for every genre. They got Thanksgiving, I think, is
nice.
one. They got there's definitely a one for every genre, or every holiday anyway.
Maybe I should be careful what I ask for then, right?
Yeah. Have you seen Leprechaun in the Hood or Leprechaun? All that?
No, that's where I left off. When Leprechaun went to the Hood and then Leprechaun went to space. Listen, I was a fan of Jason X when he goes to space. I thought that was a great romp, a hilarious send up of the whole genre, and I loved it. And I love the fact that he's on the holodeck killing people again. But it just, when Leprechaun went to space, I figured that was where I drew the line in the sand.
Yeah, they jumped the shark there, right?
A little bit. But thank God they've rebooted it, huh?
Yeah.
Well, some movies may be just best left alone. But Danny, talk to me about your fascination with horror movies and sci-fi. Is it, and let me ask you the question because I want to know, is it because this is something you truly love, or was it a cheap, easy way to get into filmmaking?
Well, it's I guess it's a little of both, really.
Okay.
And one respects, after, in one respect, starting out in the industry, one of the best ways to start out in the independent space is by making genre films, and particularly in the horror genre, because that is a kind of an evergreen genre when it comes to being able to sell the movie. But I've been a fan of the genre since I was a kid. So I was introduced to the company I've made a lot of films for, Full Moon, when I was like, I don't know, when I first saw Ghoulies, I think, back in the day. And so I think it's a little of both, really. I would always love the genre. And then as I got after film school, in order to sort of break into the movie business, I ended up working for Full Moon. And started making horror movies for him, and kind of got a little pigeonholed in that genre, even though I've produced Christmas movies and other films along the way. But it was definitely a way to also get into the genre in the independent film space, because they do well. There's no question about that. You make a horror movie, and if it's a good horror movie, chances are it's gonna get seen. It's gonna get distribution and out there. All
right. Well, now you say if it's good. Here's the weird thing. I know some independent horror movie makers, and their movies are such crap, and they live by the fact that it's crap. They love it. And I'm like, God, I personally know some of the actors and actresses, and I'm like, I've seen them act. What are you doing? Why are you making them so cartoony? And they're like, this is what sells. We sell big over in Europe and in Asia with these. And the campier, the dopier, and the bigger boobs there are, the better it sells over there. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. It is. Really? In a certain sense, yes. There's a certain bad is good element to some of these films. I mean, and and people just like the fact that to sit there and just and watch a film like because it's so. I mean, look at Sharknado. Sharknado is, they've made, I don't know, what is it, like 7 or 8, 9, whatever sequels, and that's that's got one of the highest grossing films in history. I mean, I don't have the number in front of me, but it is massive, and those movies are just big spoofs on sci-fi, the sci-fi genre,
Right. Well, with your Sharknado, though, at least you've got the kind of the bang for your buck that was proven when they did VH1 did shows like The Surreal Life, and you could take these maybe not as, I don't like to call B level because it makes it sound like they're just not great. But I mean, you take these celebrities that are not as prominent now as they once were, and it's a great chance to revisit Tiffany and Debbie Gibson fighting off a giant snake and a giant alligator. And it's fun just to watch those for what it's worth, to see Nikki Dolenz get eaten by a giant python, or these characters pop up. So that I get, but in some of these, I try to support local filmmakers in Minnesota, and I'll go to some of these independent. I just cringe through the whole thing, and then I see how much money they're making when they sell it and distribute overseas. That's been amazing to me. And they said, Dave, every time I've tried to do a straight hardcore horror movie that really kind of gets more into he goes, I can't move it. He goes, but if the actors and actresses are almost bad 80s porn quality acting, and and lots of boobs and flashy red blood, not good blood, but flashy red blood, will sell all day long. And it's been a crazy world to watch that kind of happen. Why is horror so? I mean, it seems especially in the Asian market where these really dumbed down versions of horror movies take off, they do some really stellar horror movies themselves. Why would they be so fascinated in our lower echelon entertainment?
Well, maybe they need to have their brains revived through your new technology. I don't know, man. But I mean, there's a certain. I mean, it's true what you're saying to a certain degree. I mean, I don't think it's all like that, but definitely the sort of that the bad hokiness films are definitely going to have a market no matter where you make them. But people are trying to make more serious horror films, and I tried to make a serious horror picture a while back, and it won awards. It does well on the festival circuit. It won Best Director, Best Cinematography, the whole deal. And then, but once it goes to I think that one went to Lionsgate. It just really didn't do well at all. People don't have that attention span of actually having to sit through a movie where there was practically no blood, no nudity. It was just very ghost story driven through the whole film, and it just didn't do well at all. Now, and then you go out and you make a movie that's more of a straight up slasher, blood, guts, boobs, the whole thing, and they do incredibly well. And is that a reflection on the society that we live in? Well, I guess it could be, but yeah, there's a certain truth to that, and I kind of like some of them. It just depends on which one it is, but the vast majority, yeah, I don't.
It's very strange, but I love the horror films. I always have. I mean, and I started with the hokiest of all, right? The Night of the Living Dead, that kind of, I mean, you couldn't, and I don't mean hokey in a bad sense, but I mean, you couldn't get more basic than that movie was. Of course. Yeah. And that was what I kind of cut my teeth on that. And then I remember the travesty of my dad and mom loved the Halloween movie.
Sure.
And then they waited and waited for Halloween 2. And instead a movie came out called The Day After Halloween. And my dad thought that was the sequel. And he took my buddy Rick and I to go see this horror movie classic. And he goes, oh, yeah, you guys will love this. You've seen Halloween. Wait till you see the sequel. And we go in there and it was like lesbian porn. And my dad just sat there with his jaw on the floor, realizing that he'd taken 2 like 12-year-olds to go see this movie at the time. But,
right.
I mean, so I think I was really kind of in that great wheelhouse of seeing some of the classic horror of Night of the Living Dead through the original, Friday the 13th, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, and seeing the Puppet Master series, the first couple, and watching those movies click and come together. And then everything kind of seemed to like unspool over the last few years, last 10 years of just trying to recapture that lightning in a bottle. Yes. And I don't know why why do they keep going to that same well instead of allowing people like you to be creative and create new content?
Well, I think they like to go back to the class. They had their franchises. I mean, they have a history of, like in the case of Puppet Master. I mean, that movie. I don't know how many they're on now. I think it's like 12 or 13 movies
Right.
plus a spin plus a remake that they sort of did called The Littlest Reich, I think. And now we're doing as part of this Deadly 10 series thing we're doing a Blade spinoff movie with just Blade. So yeah, I mean, I think they just go back to sort of the classic characters that all these people have loved. I mean, a lot of these people have grown up with these movies. You got to remember, these movies are 25 years or 30. I don't even know how old they are now, 25, 30 years old. So these people have grown up with these films. And I think there's that sort of little a yearning to kind of see those stories continue. And perhaps that's why they keep, dipping into that well, as you say, to create new content with classic characters. But I know I'm a huge fan of 80s horror. That's my favorite sort of the 80s and the 70s horror. That's kind of my favorite decades for that. And I'm even trying to bring back the classic ghoulies type creatures in this new movie I'm doing with just like real puppets and instead of going to CGI and everything, because I like classic, real makeup effects, real puppets, better blood effects, everything's more practical.
It's funny, right? When you talk
CGI.
about the practical effects of puppets, right?
Right.
We grew up on Star Wars. Right. We grew up on movies like Puppet Master and some of these other great horror movies, even like the Hammer horror and some of the Harryhausen. That's what I meant to say.
Oh, Harryhausen. Oh, sure.
Right. You've got the stop motion. You watch that. Then you go watch, the new Star Wars movies and everything's CGI. And I'm so put off by it. I'm like, Yoda looks so fake. And I'm like, Yoda looks fake. He's a puppet, Dave. What do you mean he looks fake? He was a puppet when you grew up with him. Now he just looks like a cartoony puppet. But it's funny how that CGI does kind of take you out. Sometimes it can take you out of the context of the movie because of how cartoony things do look. Yeah.
I mean, and the whole point of any filmmaking is that what we call in film school the suspension of disbelief, which is that you have to believe that what you're watching, you're suspending your disbelief in the movie, or you're suspending your disbelief that what you're watching is our actors and sets and everything, and getting fully engaged in actually watching a story. And I think CGI, in my opinion, I hate CGI. I mean, I use it if it helps tell the story and if it's subtle. And certainly I've used it in the past where it was a huge mistake, but but going forward, it's like I just don't like to use it unless I really need to use it, and then I will. I mean, we'll do little CGI enhancements that you would never even know is CGI, but certainly when it comes to characters like Yoda, it's a huge like whoa, he looks like a cartoon now. Whereas, I think that art form that sort of puppetry Jim Henson art form seems to me to be sadly getting lost now, and just kind of an old, it seems to be dying off a little bit, I think. And hopefully we'll be able to revive it a little bit. There are people out there that are huge fans, makeup effects guys and whatnot, that are huge fans of the classic stuff and have the talent to be able to recreate that, those puppets. So
can I ask, and I know this, I want to talk about your career, and you've got an illustrious career and a great deal, but I'm curious if it's this kind of same thing across the board. I read an article a few years ago that, I think we can agree when you think horror movies now, Blumhouse, whatever it is, they're kind of the top tier, right? And they're creating this amazing world that they've done. Mm-hmm. But I read an article that said that he'll produce like 10 movies, 8 of which will never be seen, but the 2 that do make it end up financing 20 movies.
Yeah. I've read the same thing. Yeah. It'll the ones that don't test well or perform well, or maybe the audience doesn't come out well enough or whatever, that they'll just kind of shelf it. I mean, I don't know the truth to that, but but it's right. I mean, if you make 10 but 2 were like going to be huge box office hits. Yeah, absolutely. They could finance, many, many more. So,
right. Because a good horror movie, I mean, you don't need a whole lot of money to do, I would guess, to do what you're doing. Because especially now that it seems, and again, I'm not trying to put down your industry, but it seems pretty turnkey at this point. They've come so far along in special effects. It's got to be so easy to rig most of that now, whereas it was probably much harder in the 70s and 80s. That was being innovative and probably where more of the money went in developing those films.
Right.
Is that a fair assessment to say that the money is now, because it's so easy and those effects have been done in a way that you can, whip them out a lot easier and a lot more cost effective than before? Or is it still pretty pricey just for the general hack and dash special effects?
Well, I don't think it's the price has really increased. I think, I mean, as far as like the doing like practical effects, I mean, you're just paying for materials and the talent to be able to create it. I think what's changed more than anything since the 80s and 90s is the availability of the equipment for anybody and everybody, all the way down to your little sister or whoever to make a movie. And that is high quality cameras that became available to be able to shoot cinematic quality material. So you got pretty much anybody who wakes up one day and says, you know what, I want to be a director. And I get this all the time. I want to be a director. What do I need to do? And it's the first thing they do. They run down to the Best Buy or whatever, buy a little camera, and they're ready to go. And then they can take that camera, shoot in HD 4K, 23:9:8, the whole deal, and go out and get a few friends, and they make a little movie, cut it together in iMovie, and all of a sudden that same movie is at the film market right next to my movie, which costs $200,000 or $300,000 or $1 million or $3 million. And maybe they made a better movie. Who knows? They could. I mean, there's look at Blair, you got Blair Witch and all these movies that have been made for pennies. Right,
Paranormal Activity, that whole deal, right?
Paranormal Activity. That pretty much that started Jason Blum of Blumhouse. Made a fortune. I think it only cost him like, I don't know the exact number in front of me. I think it was low. It was like 15, 20 grand or something like that. It was low. And made bajillions of dollars. And of course that pretty much, that put him on the map as far as being, Is a bajillion a little less than a Brazilian? A bajillion. That's a producer term for us. That's why we need that brain stuff, man. We need to get that. So anyway, yeah. So I think that the technology is one of the things that have changed the most, because the technology has gotten cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, that people are able to make movies cheaper. Whereas back in 1982, if you wanted to make a movie, you're talking about, you'd had to have trucks and these huge lights with generators. And then of course you had to shoot on film. I mean, having shot on 35 millimeter film myself, it's extremely expensive. I mean, you're talking, you gotta buy the film, you gotta have it developed, you gotta have it transferred. And now it's just like you could sit there all day long and just, shoot high def all day long, get you a little $200 hard drive, drop all your stuff onto it all day long. So I think that has certainly changed the industry. And that I think is more around the end, like the early 2000s, like the end of the 90s, going into the early 2000s. And I was involved back then, early on with some of the first group of people who were actually shooting professional movies on, at the time, was DV cam, which is now it's like standard def. It looks terrible, but back then it was kind of innovated because we were shooting on DV and everybody else was shooting on film, but we were able to make the movies for like a quarter of what everyone else was making them for. So we were able to turn out a movie for $25,000 in 8 days, shot on DV cam, and then we would run it through sort of a film looking process to make the digital video look a little bit more filmic. And we made many movies like that back in the early 2000s. So yeah. Anyway,
it's fascinating to me how that whole thing breaks down. And 25,000, even if you put it out in the movie, is kind of a failure. You've probably made 4 times what you put the movie out for, right?
Yeah. Well, in those days, in those days, when I made movies for that Blockbuster Video back in the day, when there were Blockbuster Videos and Hollywood Videos.
Tell me about the good old days, Grandpa.
We would, yeah, we would make a movie, and it was almost like a movie made to order. So it was kind of like Blockbuster Video would be like, hey, if you guys make an urban horror movie, we'll buy it. So that was how we would determine what we were making. We weren't just sitting around going, oh, I think I'd really love to make a vampire movie. No, like I made this urban horror movie ages ago, like over 20 years ago now. And it was a made to order. It was something I would have never really made, but it was like, hey, if you make this urban horror movie and it's got vampires and everything in it, we'll buy it. So we made this sort of vampire stripper movie and called Crips. And it was kind of based on the old movie from the 80s that Grace Jones was in called Vamp. And,
right.
And that was kind of the inspiration for it. So, I shot this movie for, I don't know, $25,000, shot it in like 6 or 8 days, 6 days, 7 days. That was a long time ago. And it was a bunch of, there was these rappers that one of them went to the strip club and and the strip club was full of all the strippers were vampires, and it was just all hell breaks loose and blood and guts and fighting and the whole thing. And the movie was successful, wildly successful. It was at Blockbuster Video, it was at Hollywood Video, it did, foreign, the whole thing, and you're talking about a movie that was made for pennies. And I made many movies like that actually in the early 2000s. And that was at a time when one sale to a video store like a Blockbuster Video would pay for the entire film, and that's not to that. And that's just one sale. I mean, you still have the foreign market, the, all the other outlets, and this is before streaming, so it was a kind of a fun time to make movies, but things change as, as the streaming and internet got better. Blockbuster and all the video stores closed down, and now everything is more, streaming based, So yeah, it's a ever-changing industry, that's for sure, and you kind of have to follow with the trends.
We listen. We have about a minute left in the segment, so we can't get too deep in. But I do want to come back and talk about your paranormal experiences.
Yeah,
you were shooting on set at Linda Vista Hospital in East LA. I actually filmed an episode there of a show called Paranormal Challenge, and I was given a little free time to roam about the hospital, and I saw a woman. I started trailing a woman down the hall because she wasn't supposed to be there. It was a closed set for our show. And I must have followed her for a good 3-4 minutes trying to catch up with her in the building. Yeah. And I couldn't find her. Mm-hmm. And I asked I went back out on set and I'm like, hey, there's a woman roaming around inside there. And the camera guy goes, Dave, we've got cameras everywhere. There was nobody. I said, I was just walking through there. He goes, yeah, we watched you walk through there. And I said, I was walking right behind a woman. She was like 20, 30 feet in front of me. Mm-hmm. And he goes, she wasn't showing up on camera. So that was one of those after the fact. I was like, what the hell? So it was a weird deal where I could see it, but the cameras weren't picking it up, which is unique, right? A lot of times you see things through the lens that you can't see with the bare eye. We'll talk about that. Yeah. We've got more with Danny when we come back. Stay tuned. You're listening to the best in anomalous talk radio. I'm Dave Schrader, and this is Midnight in the Desert. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the program. Midnight in the Desert is on the air. Let me tell you some exciting news. I've just been added to Ghostbusters Fest, June 7th and 8th at Sony Pictures Studio Lot in Culver City, California. I'll be hosting at least one paranormal panel with Dan Aykroyd. I'd love for you guys to join us. Ghostbusters Fan Fest, presented by Wizard World, is a once-in-a-lifetime private event celebrating the 35th anniversary of the 1984 film and its legacy as a cultural touchstone that combined comedy and the paranormal and genre-defining special effects. This is a can't-miss event, guys. It's on the Sony Pictures Studio Lot in Culver City, California. It will honor all of the movie. They've got fantastic guests that are going to be joining them. You have a chance to meet members of the Ghostbusters cast, filmmakers, crew, and hear about behind-the-scenes stories. You'll also get access to exclusive programming and attractions, limited edition merchandise, collectibles, so much more. Ivan Reitman's going to be there, Dan Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson, Jason Reitman, Ray Parker Jr. is going to be on hand. Frank Welker. I'm trying to think of who else. Dave Coulier. These are some of the voices of the cartoon characters as well. They've also got Jennifer Runyon, who's going to be on hand, and Stephen Tash. They were the two students at the beginning that Bill Murray was doing the experiment with. A whole great list. I'll have information up on my website at darknessevents.com. That's darknessevents.com. But in the interim, just go check out wizardworld.com, and the Ghostbusters tag is right there at the top. When you go to check out, use Darkness10 as your checkout code, Darkness10, and you'll save 10% off the cost of your weekend passes, and you'll get a chance to see me. So hopefully we'll see you out there and have a great time celebrating Ghostbusters. All right, Danny, we're back, and I want to hear about your experience when you were shooting on set at Linda Vista Hospital in East LA. What movie were you making at that point?
Well, I was making a movie for Full Moon, and it was a found footage movie, and it was called Real Evil, and it also has another title called Spectres. But it's probably more well known at Redbox and everything it was as Real Evil. And so we were making this found footage movie at Linda Vista Hospital, and I shot there for maybe about 6 days. And I've never liked that place. I scouted I scouted it once before, like a year or a couple of years before I even made this movie. They said, "Oh yeah, come on down. You can walk around and everything." So I went by myself, and I opened the door. I walked in. I got in a little bit. I was like, I got goose. I was out of there, man. So I was like, okay, yeah. So years later, ended up shooting a movie there, and it was pretty crazy, I got to say. So as far as paranormal wise, like what happened when we were there, I mean, we're shooting all night. So it's a horror movie, so we're pretty much from the time the sun goes down to the time the sun goes up, we're all over this building shooting. And you've been there, you know how big this place is.
Yes, yeah.
Multiple levels, basement, weird tunnels, and we shot in all of the most bizarre places, particularly in the lower levels. And several things happened, really. I mean, one of the things that I always like to talk about too is there was this stuffed animal that kept appearing next to me every time. Like it happened like 3 or 4 times during the shoot. The first time it happened was when we were actually location scouting, and that's what we do before we ever get to shooting. We go to the location. It's usually me, the art director, a couple other people. Broad daylight. We walk around the building. We kind of decide where we're going to shoot. So the first time was that I went around and I looked over, and there was this door, and it was chained, and down right below it there was this little stuffed animal. And it was, you know how like a dog would leave a stuffed toy for you to sort of, right, like, hey, play with me kind of thing. So here it was, the building's trashed, and this stuffed animal is just sitting right in front of the door, perfectly posed. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. Didn't think much of it, right? And it's like, that's kind of a little weird, whatever. So then, a week or so later, we're shooting, and so I'm at the monitor, and we're in the basement, completely different floor. And we're doing the scene in the basement, and she's running around the whole thing. And I look down, that same stuffed animal right next to my monitor. And I was like, that's the same stuffed animal that was right next to. I saw it a couple days ago. Everybody's like, yeah. Everybody thinks the place is haunted, of course. So that freaked me out a little bit. But the real thing that kind of set it for me was when the third time it happened. We were on a completely different part of the hospital. And there's, I don't know if you remember, but there's all these like old baby cribs and like baby incubators and all this kind of stuff just all over the place. I mean, they're just strewn everywhere in this place, and it's great for a horror movie. So I was in a different part of the hospital, and I'm shooting, and I look behind me, and we have there was one of those old like cribs for newborns and stuff, and it had some junk in it and everything, but there it was again, that same stuffed animal. Right in that hip. So this thing just it was like something kept leaving this thing for me throughout the hospital. And we were shooting concurrently. It was only us in this hospital shooting. So, to see this thing move about and it was almost like somebody was trying to get my attention with it. And I just thought that was just the strangest thing ever. And so after something like that happened, I went back to a lot of my location scout photos, and I was just looking through them. And 2 of the photos, and I can send them to you too, 2 of the photos I took. One was in the basement where the records room is at. You can clearly see like this. It looks like a guy with kind of like a mustache, kind of peering out of one of the doorways. And I was like, oh man, that's so creepy. So so I had that photo, and then there was another photo upstairs that kind of it almost looks like it's like a glowing, kind of like a glowing figure almost. And so I got that photo as well. And then when I was there, I was doing a vidcast, and I did an EVP session by myself, which was stupid. And anyway, I did this EVP session. I left the recorder, brand new recorder. I just went to Best Buy, bought it, brand new batteries, was doing this whole thing. And again, 15 minutes into that recorder being there, I left because I had to go shoot, but I left it there. But 15 minutes into it, the batteries, of course, drained. And of course, I listened to the EVP, and there was like this, it was like a little girl kind of thing, like, and then the thing was dead after 15 minutes into it. So then I heard that there's a little girl that's sort of like kind of, one of the entities in this place who apparently had been hit by a car in front of the place years ago, and lots of other people have seen her around, I guess. And then I know about the woman, because I think Nick Groff had a confrontation too with the woman in the basement. I actually asked him. I think I got on Facebook or something before. I said, hey man, I'm shooting a movie at Linda Vista, and hey, what room was that where you had that encounter? And he told me, said it was the surgery suite downstairs or something. So I shot in that surgery suite. Actually, I put my sound guy in there for about half the day to see if anything would happen to him. That was a little cruel, maybe. But anyway, so I stuck him in there, and nothing really happened downstairs except for I got extremely like sick when I was down there, and I had to leave the building a couple of times. But other than that, that was about it. But other people had experiences too, people on the crew and stuff. But I mean, that's that. You could probably fill up a whole show with just that, but they'd have to tell their own stories. But yeah, it was that place is 100% haunted in my opinion. I mean, any day of the week. I've never been in such a creepier place to have to work in for 6 days straight, all night. So, yeah, it's a pretty insane place, and I think they converted it now to like it's like a retirement home now for senior citizens. They were renovating it when we were doing it, and I was like, really, you guys are turning this? And yeah, so they were starting to gut it and turn it into a retirement home for senior citizens. So I was like, oh great, it was empty there for over a decade. Yeah. So I'm not sure if you can even get in there anymore now. It's been a while, but we shot that movie, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago now. But yeah, so pretty crazy, man, that place. It's cool that you had an experience there, because I would believe you.
Yeah, we had quite a few during the filming of the program as well. I believe they got some pretty interesting evidence when we were at Linda Vista. We actually had oh gosh, now his name is escaping me. Dr. Michael Shermer from Skeptic Magazine as one of our judges on that episode. And there were some things that happened that he turned to me and he said, well, I don't know the answer to that when something would occur. And it was great to see that. I mean, he wouldn't go on record saying, yeah, that's paranormal, but he was like, well, that was weird. So it's pretty cool when even the skeptics were kind of raising an eyebrow to how action packed it was in that place.
Yeah, definitely. And in the boiler room downstairs, that's where they shot, all the Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy Krueger's boiler room. That's right. That downstairs. I mean, this place has a lot of filming history to it, but it also has a lot of dark history to it too. Yeah. I mean, with all the gang violence in that area and everything, all the medical malpractice, and I mean, it's creepy when you go down. I mean, I shot in the records room downstairs in the sort of the basement level. And you go in there and all those records are like real people. I mean, there's social security numbers, their full records are still there, and there's like real. They're like these are real people. I mean, these should be like destroyed. It was very strange to see all that, but you'd see that all the time there, and it was just like everybody just woke up one day and left, and everything is left there. And you see remnants of probably people that have shot there. Big pentagrams on the walls and stuff. Right. They say people break in and do like all kinds of crazy activity in there. Sometimes at night they have to run them off and stuff. And then of course you have the, you got crackheads and everybody else coming in there. There's crack pipes on the ground when I was there. I remember love time. It's just it's a filthy place. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
Well, speaking of crackpots and meth heads, tell me about some of the celebrities you've worked with.
Yeah, right.
How is that? I mean, is it, do you run into money problems or challenges with the celebrities on these kind of movies? And did they have any weird experiences?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Yes, they're definitely, they're in their own classification of strangeness. But as far as like on that particular movie, everybody was, they were more creeped out, I think, than having more of a paranormal experience. I mean, I had some, a couple of the crew members had some, but as far as like other movies, like, I mean, I worked with Michael Ironside, I don't know if you know who.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Michael Ironside from Total Recall and everything. Well, he was in my last film I did this movie called Patient 7, and it was a horror anthology. So it's, Michael Ironside plays this a doctor at this insane asylum, and anyway, he interviews all these different patients, and of course each patient has their own story, and that story goes into a little sort of short story. And so I did this horror anthology with him, and I've been a fan of his forever, of course. And no, I mean, the original Total Recall, I think, is probably my favorite of his, but I mean, gosh, everything from V to Starship Troopers to he just goes down the list. So it was a real Scanners, of course, being probably one of his more famous ones. But he was fun to work with. I had a blast working with him. I mean, he has his own little intricacies and strangeness at times, but it was a blast.
Right?
It was a blast. Yeah, it was a blast working with him. And, I mean, to get somebody like Michael Ironside and have to shoot a movie in like 4 days is kind of tough on him and everyone else. You're talking about, having to go through a lot of pages in 10 hours, Yeah. And that's tough for everybody involved. But no, I enjoyed working with him. It was a fun movie to make. If you're into horror anthologies, check it out. Patient 7.
All right, very cool. Talk to me about your projects. I mean, you've got quite a few rolling right now. You've got the Danny Draven's Masters of Terror, the series. You've also got Danny Draven's Horror Vault, the series, right? That people can find on Amazon Prime and Amazon.com. Right. Tell us a little bit about the series and what they can expect.
Well, those two series, if you're into really seeing what it's like to make a movie, go behind the scenes, interview with the directors. I would say, the Masters of Terror series is up your alley, because that's a lot of behind the scenes interviews with, I interview a lot of friends of mine, like Stuart Gordon, who made Reanimator, or Mick Garris, who made Sleepwalkers, and just the Trauma guys. I mean, just go down the list. I mean, that's pretty much that series. The Horror Vault series is kind of like being a fly on the wall on set and seeing all the problems that happen throughout the day, like actors that are drunk and, or the fire department showing up every 5 times during the shoot because we were using smoke machines in downtown LA, and they keep thinking like the building was on fire, and seeing me get fined all the time. And, just all the problems that happen on set. That's more of that series, the Horror Vault. And it's kind of like just the fly on the wall thing. And what we got going on now is a new series, the new movie I'm making. You're going to love this one. You're going to laugh at this one. So we got a new series called the Deadly 10 series that Full Moon's doing. And what this is 10 feature films that are going to be made in the next year. 1 year, 10 movies, all horror pictures, 10 different directors. And the unique thing about this that has never been done before is that the entire movie making process on every film is going to be live streamed on the website. So you have two live cameras. One's like a set camera, and the other one's like a roaming camera that'll go around. And I mean the entire process. So every day when I'm on set, it's a 12-hour stream that you're going to be able to see how we're making these movies. And that's really never been done before. And that's what's so unique about this Deadly 10 thing. And the first movie up is a movie that I'm directing, and you're going to love this. It's called Halloween Night. Meet the Ouijas. And,
nice.
Now, Before you think I'm insane,
Too late.
This is a a stoner horror comedy, and we're going to do like classic 80s ghoulies type creatures, like we were talking before about doing
Right.
like the old puppetry, and we're basically taking this horror comedy and sort of doing like a throwback to the 80s with doing like real puppets and real practical effects with everything. So that's going to be like a lot of fun to do for me, especially for fans of that genre. But it's just a madhouse movie with these, these little creatures. They're called Ouijas, and they come out of a Ouija board, and they wreak havoc all night at this Halloween party. So it's like total, like, campy, fun, classic, like 80s type horror. So that's what we're doing right now. We're shooting that in Vegas here in June, which is coming up very quickly.
Oh, that's awesome.
And what's cool is it's free. I mean, like there's no, like, you can go to the website. It's Deadly. I think it's Deadly 10. Spell out the word 10, deadly10.com. And all you do is you just sign up, and it's totally free. And you can see the live streams and everything as we're actually making the movie. And I think that's a really unique thing that nobody has done, because directors are usually really weird about people seeing their process. I mean, imagine like if you were a cook and you were showing somebody how to do something, yeah, you can cut that up and make you look good. But imagine just seeing all the screaming and yelling and actor meltdowns and director meltdowns and police showing up and all the problems that happen on a movie set in real time as it happens. And that's kind of how this is designed to be, kind of like almost like a reality show in a certain way. So I'm looking forward to that, because I'm used to doing the behind the scenes thing, but making a movie is not an easy process, and there are a lot of different kinds of personalities that you get. Crazy, crazy actors, crazy directors, crazy crew people, whatever. But when you get to see it happen in real time, I think it'll be fun, because it will be like totally unedited.
And again, you can go to deadly10.com and you'll find the information there. I'll have to connect you. Are you familiar with Robert Murch?
Bob Murch? No, I don't.
He's the official like Ouija board historian.
Okay.
But they're always, whenever there's movies that use some kind of form of the Ouija board, they always like to help promote it and get you out there and talk to you about it. So that might be a good little connection for you both.
Yeah. I'm sure he's never seen a design like this one before. He just did a sketch design on it, a workup on the design on this Ouija board, and it's pretty
awesome.
It's pretty freaking insane. I mean,
that's cool.
So it'll be fun. It'll be fun, but just think classic 80s ghoulies and a lot of fun, and you'll definitely tune in for it.
When you said you were working hard to try to get some actual, and I'm not putting down the other ones, but I mean an actual like horror movie made and get into that. Mm-hmm. Where is the pushback coming from now? Is it just studio heads that kind of have their heads up their ass and they don't know what people really want to see anymore?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, when it comes to studio heads, they like to play it safe. And so they like, that's why you see all these franchises getting remade and remade and remade and remade, because they have a built-in audience. No matter if you hate the movie, doesn't matter. You're still probably going to go see the remake of another Friday the 13th just because it's Friday the 13th. So it's tough to gamble on new projects, especially when you're gambling that amount of money. Whereas an indie film, it could be $50,000, or $100,000, $200,000. It's not a huge loss if the movie doesn't, perform well. But I think well, and of course they just keep making Marvel movie after Marvel movie after Marvel movie too, which is, probably, funding all their awards movies that nobody's watching. So, but when it comes to horror though, I think they like to play it safe. And I think the more entertaining horror and the more fun horror you're probably going to get in the indie space, the independent filmmakers who are going out and making movies like, I can't think of some off the top of my head, but I mean, Blumhouse is kind of making some, kind of indie stuff. I mean, they got pretty good budgets to work with too, but I mean, for instance, like my movie, Halloween Night, right? That movie would never get made. That would never get made. Can you imagine me pitching that movie to like Universal? They would never get made. So that's what's so cool about making horror movies on the indie space, is we can make the movies that we want to make, and we make them how we want to make them. and we don't censor it. We keep everything in that we want to keep in, and there's no PC censorship. There's no oh, you can't say that, or you can't do that, or that might be offensive, or somebody might cry if they see that. No, we do it the way we want to do it, and that's the appeal for a lot of indie guys, to make movies the way they want to make them, because that's the way it should be. So that's why I like working in the indie space anyway. And the studio space, I mean, I was mentored by, the executive producer from Criminal Minds. I mean, I've been to whole entire shoots for major network television shows, and I see these directors work, and they're very limited in what they can do. It's almost like they're traffic cops. They just sort of direct the background extras or the co-stars, but they have very little other input, because the shows are established already and you can't really mess with that. Whereas you making independent feature films, the director is kind of the king, the head of the ship, and every creative decision goes through you. So you have
isn't it ridiculous when you consider, I mean, like, the NFL gets two really young coaches, and now we should really look for all young coaches. Mm-hmm. Other businesses see something like innovation, and you'd think in the Hollywood market, look at, some of the Blair Witch movies, the Paranormal Activity movies, the Conjuring movies, all done on low budgets and mm-hmm. stretching outside the genre of just hack and slash horror, and they're killing, but yet they're still so confined from opening their mind to see it expand in other ways.
Yeah, right.
I mean, unless you have a Jason Blum attached to it or a name like that, but he had to finance his first movies on his own, and it was only once they exploded that then everybody wanted a piece of him. Uh-huh. It's so funny. You'd think they'd be culling that herd, looking for the next fresh young guy that can come out with, or gal that has guy and gal. What am I, 80? That has the next horror movie approach, and would be willing to kind of stretch the genre again.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But I don't. I just don't see that really happening. I don't see it that. I just don't really see much of that happening. It just seems like people in the indie space, my advice to them is always just, hey man, if you want to make a movie, go make your own movie. I mean, I've written 3 books on the subject. It's like, if you want to know how to do it, just, it's not a big deal, just you gotta study, and you gotta do it, and you make your own movie, make your own stamp, and get it done. I mean, I'm still getting I still have fans from it. I made this movie ages ago for $15,000, and it was called Dark Walker, and it's literally just a no budget slasher movie. And even 18 years later, or whatever it is now, I still get people like, man, Dark Walker is the best. I love Dark Walker. It changed my life, man. It made me get into movies. And I'm like, really? I'm like, no way. I was like, I don't even like the movie. So it's like, it's just weird. I mean, you never know what some stuff you did 18 years ago influences people, and it spawns like 2 Halloween masks and stuff. And I'm like, wow, okay, $15,000 movie, Not
a bad job if you can get it.
Yeah. So yeah, it's
very cool.
It's fun. I mean, it's nice to. I mean, I've seen people. They've had tattoos. This one lady had a tattoo of the Dark Walker on her leg, and I'm like, why would you do that? Like, why would you tattoo that? I mean, I appreciate, it's cool and everything, but that doesn't come off.
Yeah, I know. Doing Darkness Radio for 13 years. We had some caricature images of us, and there's about, at the last count, about 12, 13 women that have us tattooed on them.
No,
and I'm like, you're kidding me. And they've shown me, and I get funny remarks from the husbands on that. But yeah, it's weird when you see your reach into there. Danny, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, and I really appreciate it.
Stay tuned. Ira Pastor next, resurrecting the dead here on Midnight in the Desert.